Dear brothers and sisters, in the last khutbah we talked about the wisdom and the benefits behind fasting and the virtue of the month of Ramadan. Actually, we focus mostly on the wisdom behind fasting, but today's khutbah we will be talking about the Quran, because the reason this month of Ramadan received this high status is because Allah chose this month out of the whole year to reveal His book, to bestow His mercy on His creation and to guide them through this revelation. It is also mentioned in the ahadith that not only the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan, but Allah has chosen this month for the revelation of all the books of guidance that He has revealed to all the prophets before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This indicates to us the unique nature of this month, and that we should pay attention to it, and we should do our best to draw closer as much as we can to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and gain as much reward and good deeds as we can during this month. Now, even the fasting, it aims to purify the soul so as to make this heart more likely to receive the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The avoidance of sins as well, and the sacrifice for the sake of Allah during the month of Ramadan purifies the heart to receive the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. As I mentioned in the last khutbah, that the word Ramadan is only mentioned once in the whole Quran, and it is in this verse in Surah Al-Baqarah. And the word Quran is mentioned multiple times, but the first time the word Quran is mentioned in the whole Quran is actually in this verse. So this verse basically combined and made a link between the only time the word Ramadan is mentioned and the first time the Quran is mentioned, indicating the close link and attachment between the Quran and Ramadan. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ during this month, most of his focus was to recite and study the Quran. And even during the nights he would study the Quran with Jibreel alayhi salam. And he focused on praying long prayer with the Quran, recitation of the Quran. And even the scholars of Islam throughout history, they would be giving classes throughout the year, but when it comes to the month of Ramadan, they would focus on the Quran. Even their classes would be focused on the explanation of the Quran, and their time would be dedicated to recitation of the Quran day and night. And people throughout history, in the month of Ramadan specifically, they would complete the Quran at least once or more than once. Now, even in recent history, there are confirmed reports of people, especially when the nights are long, completing the whole Quran every day. And those are regular people. It's not like we're talking about people from hundreds of years ago. Regular people from these days who have basically recited the whole Quran every day. Between a day and night, they would finish the whole Quran in recitation. Now, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the effort and the strength to focus on this, inshallah. So, the Quran was revealed in this month, and this gave this month its high status. Jibreel alayhi salam was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to deliver this message. And because of this, Jibreel obtained the highest status amongst the angels. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the one chosen from this humanity to receive the Quran. And this made him the best of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even this ummah inherited the Quran from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it became khayru ummatin ukhrijat linnas, the best nation that was brought forth to the people. Now, even if an individual acquires the Quran in his heart with recitation and belief and following, then this person will also be elevated in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. The best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. So anything that this Quran comes close to becomes elevated in ranking. And that is why if we focus on the Quran during this month and throughout our life, this is the only way that we draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we elevate our ranks in the akhirah. You know the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said that even the people, when they enter Jannah, Allah would tell the people who have the Quran or recite the Quran that اقرأ وارتقي ورتل كما كنت ترتل في الدنيا. Recite the Quran and elevate yourself. The more that you recite, the more you get elevated in the Jannah, in heavens, in paradise. So it is so important to focus on the Quran, understand it, know its value, believe in everything in it. Every letter is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's not a single book throughout history that has been given more attention and more dedication by its people than this book. It is unbelievable when we read and study how they have preserved for us even the way the Prophet ﷺ pronounced each letter, even how he elongated the alif, whether it is 2 harakat or 4 harakat or 6 harakat. All this is preserved. Even the way he moved his lips during recitation of the Quran, that is also preserved. Scholars of Islam have written down how many there is Hamza in the Quran, how many alif, how many every letter, how the letter is actually written, how the word is written, because the writing of the Quran and the scribing of the Quran is written a little bit different than the regular Arabic writing. For instance, look at the word salah, how it is written in the Quran and how it is written in Arabic. We write it alif, lam, sad, lam, alif, and then ta marbuta. But in the Quran it is written differently. Alif, lam, sad, lam, waw, alif, ta marbuta. You see so many differences, and all these were preserved. The way it is written also is preserved for us. And that is confirmation of Allah's promise, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. It is we who have revealed this dhikr, this reminder to the creation, of course. وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Allah has promised that He will be the one. Allah has taken the responsibility of preserving it. No matter how much creation or this humanity antagonizes the Quran and goes against it, they will never be able to change a single letter of this book. Actually, Allah will use even the kuffar to preserve this book. You see now how the Quran is spread all over the internet. Who invented this internet? Even who invented at-tiba'a, meaning print and paper. All these things came from nations that are not Muslims, and Allah used it more for preservation of this book than any other book. There is not a book that is recited more than the Quran throughout history, and that's why it's called Quran. It comes from qira'ah, from recitation. So Allah has indicated by this that there is no book that will be read more than this book, and repeated and memorized. There is no book that will be dedicated, that people will dedicate their time and effort and abilities to preserve them more than this book in writing. That's why it is called Kitab. And this is the book that was written in a Lawh al-Mahfuz, in the preserved tablets, even before it was revealed to us. This is an amazing book that we have to focus on. If somebody wants salvation, he has to pay attention to the Quran. It's called in the Quran, it has many names and has many attributes and descriptions. But the 4 main names of the Quran are Al-Quran, Al-Kitab, Al-Furqan, Al-Dhikr. Those 4 names we have to know and memorize and know their significance. Quran comes from recitation because it is recited. There's not a single book that you get reward for every letter that you recite except the Quran. You won't get the same reward if you recite a hadith, for instance. But the book of Allah, you get. Even if you don't understand what you are reciting, you are still rewarded for every single letter. According to the hadith, من قرأ حرفا من كتاب الله كتب له به حسنة والحسنة بعشر أمثالها. Whoever recites a letter, he didn't say a word, he said a letter of the book of Allah, he will receive a hasana, a unit of reward. وَالْحَسَنَةُ بِعَشْرِ أَمْثَالِهَا. And because of the mercy of Allah and His bounty and His favor, automatically each hasana is multiplied by 10. The least you will get is 10 hasanat. You've only earned 1, also by the guidance and tawfiq and favor of Allah. But still, you've only earned 1, but Allah will automatically multiply by 10. That is the least. But some people are multiplied 700 times according to the ayat and ahadith, إِلَى أَضْعَافٍ كَثِيرًا, to endless multiplication based on their dedication, their perfection, their belief in what they are reciting, its impact on their hearts, and how they are going to apply it. This is all calculated. Nothing is missed from the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he said, لا أقول ألف لام ميم حرف بل ألف حرف ولام حرف وميم حرف. He said, I will not tell you that Alif Lam Mim is a letter, Although you might think it's one thing, but he says alif is a harf and lam is a harf and mim is a harf. Each one is an individual letter that deserves an individual reward, and that reward is multiplied accordingly. And even if you don't understand it, because even in Arabic, alif, lam, mim are letters. So for us, we don't know exactly what is the meaning behind them. Even if you know Arabic, there are many wisdoms behind them and miracles that we know. Not the time to talk about it now. But the exact meaning, it is sir min asrarillahi fi kitabi. It is a secret Allah has put in His book. And the more we investigate, the more we research, we find miracles behind those letters. Now, and then it is called kitab because it is written. It's called Furqan, means it differentiates between goodness and evil. It differentiates between guidance and deviation from guidance. It tells you what is halal and what is haram. Furqan comes from tafriq, to separate. It separates the way of the believers from the path of the non-believers. It separates the destiny of the believers from the path of those who reject this Quran. Those who believe in the Quran, their path is to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the heavens. And those who reject it, they have no other path but to the wrath of Allah and the punishment in the fire of hell. May Allah save us. This is the book that separates between the people. Separates between the people in their morals, in their conducts, in what they believe in how they view things, in how they act, in how they behave, in where they are going in this life and where they are going in the hereafter. It is called Al-Furqan. Also, it is called Al-Dhikr because it reminds human beings of their Creator. It tells them about their Creator. It introduces their Creator to them. It tells them about His existence, His attributes, His might, His wisdom, His mercy, all these things. It tells them about the wisdom of their existence in this life and where they are going after this life. It is dhikr, and dhikr is to remember. So every time these kind of meanings we tend to forget. In the middle of this life, as we are going, we tend to forget these important concepts. We get busy with our life and then we are exposed to different desires and attractions. So we tend to forget the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We tend to forget why we are here. We tend to forget what we're supposed to be doing and where we are going. We tend to forget about death. But the Quran reminds us of all these things. You read one surah of the Quran and it tells you you find so many things in the one surah. It tells you about Allah, it tells you about what you're supposed to be doing, where you are going, and so on. Dhikr. Also, dhikr comes from, in Arabic, means high ranking or elevated status. This is because there is no book that is higher than the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those who acquire this book are also elevated. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even when he used to bury the Sahaba, when many of them die at once, such as in the Battle of Uhud, he would dig a hole and then he would ask who knows more and memorizes more of the Quran. And that person who memorizes more, he would be introduced into his grave before the one who memorizes less. Even that to lead the prayer, it depends on how much Quran that you know. The Quran is the book that will make intercession for the believer in the day of judgment. It is also the book that elevates your ranks in heaven.